Hey, Shannon here again for more Film Nerd. I talk at the end of episode 5 for a little while about making films without much of a budget in quick and vague terms, and I thought about it for a long time and decided that that topic was worth spending a separate video on. I'm going to try to stick mostly to advice that's evergreen rather than specific and technical. I'm not going to pretend that I can accurately predict where technology will be a year from now, let alone 5 or 10 years from now, and I want this series to have an educational utility outside of whatever lifespan current film technology has. This essay will apply to shooting narrative short films as well as documentary style work and video essays like this one. I'm also going to be focusing on what you can do in the US because that's what I'm familiar with as far as resources and laws go, but it will have use outside of that as well. Also, you follow the advice presented in this video at your own risk, and I am not liable for any damages you may incur for following any of it. Okay, now, with that taken care of, there's a lot standing in the way of a new filmmaker. Lack of confidence, lack of experience and technical expertise, lack of a budget, and lack of collaborators and community support. I'm going to address each of these, starting with confidence and experience. I've known a lot of people who wanted to get started, but have been afraid of criticism or of not being good enough. It's true that you're not going to be the best filmmaker you can be when you first start out, but you shouldn't hold yourself to the same standards as people with huge budgets who have been working for years and let yourself get discouraged by being caught up in all that. If you want your first work to be perfect and you hold out until you feel you can reach perfection, then you're going to be holding out forever. There's the phrase, the perfect is the enemy of the good, and the nirvana fallacy. The fallacy that if there's no perfect solution to a problem, there's no point in attempting to solve it because any current solution falls short of the impossible, hypothetical perfect one. The Dunning-Kruger effect applies to people who are new to something and vastly underestimate their incompetence, as well as people who, more familiar and experienced with the same thing, will instead underestimate their competence. This ties in with imposter syndrome, where people who are accomplished and high achievers have difficulty accepting their success and are instead afraid to be outed as frauds. So if you're way into film and have the obsessive passion and have just started making your own films, it's easy to hit a wall and become frustrated, especially because filmmaking is so demanding of your time and your mental and physical energy. You have to focus on improving and learning from failures and mistakes and not letting yourself get discouraged. Self-compassion and giving yourself room to grow are two extremely valuable tools for any artist. If you're a fan of my essays or films and you want to make your own, remember I'm only 26 years old, but I've been editing for at least 12 years. I would hope that anyone editing for that long would be as good as I am, if not better. But on the flip side of this, you can be too easy on yourself and plateau or put out work that really isn't your best effort. Instead, always respect your audience, and always work to improve and make something that you can be proud of. I've seen so many people online post their work, whether it's a film, a writing, or a drawing, or whatever, with a tepid, this is really bad, this sucks, but here you go. It's healthy and important to be self-critical, but if you don't believe in some half-hearted work or don't think it's worth anyone's time, or if you're too coolly detached to have any enthusiasm or sincerity in what you're doing, then I really have no idea why you think I'm going to invest my time into watching it. I'm a really big fan of the Venture Brothers, and something valuable I learned from the show and its showrunners, Doc Hammer and Jackson Public, though I know they're sick of talking about it by now, is acceptance and even celebration of failure. Hammer once said, "You make something contemporary and cool, and it becomes mediocre, and there's nothing more criminal than mediocrity. I can deal with a giant flaming disaster, and I can deal with something being a beautiful vision, but mediocrity is just horrible." As long as you're being sincere and putting forth the real effort and having faith in and respect for your audience, you'll be okay. Looking at any of my short films and video essays, I think the minimum I've spent on a single one has been around 10 or 15 hours, and the maximum is over 150 hours. I feel like even if someone is new to filmmaking and really has no idea what they're doing, if they invest 150 hours into a 10-minute video that is entirely their own, I will probably find something interesting and worthwhile about it, versus someone who is slick and has technical expertise but makes something boring and middle of the road, or some soulless clickbait designed to go viral. As Hammer said, a spectacular failure is so much more valuable than try-hard cool mediocrity. Use the tools at your disposal to make something unique and worthwhile, even if at first your reach exceeds your grasp. Don't let fear control your self-expression, but please, don't be an edgelord. Don't go just for shock value or offending people as your hook. I'm not saying you have to agree with me politically or avoid taboos or anything controversial. I'm just saying that edgelordism is transparent, weak, and lazy. And you're better than that. I'm not saying to censor yourself either, but be careful about what you put online and how you're representing yourself, especially if your opinions might change in the future, because once you upload something, it's up forever, and the last thing you want or need when you've become an established personality is to have someone dig up something embarrassing you made when you were an edgy teen, or even some low-effort, poorly made video where you were too cool to care about stuff like sound or lighting. Generally, be ready for criticism and take it as an opportunity to grow, rather than being upset by it or being defensive. And remember that anything you put online is going to be subject to intense scrutiny. I had the advantage of growing up and learning how to draw online, so I developed a thick skin about it. but not everyone is in that place mentally or has had that kind of experience. I don't say that to be discouraging, I just mean that you have to be ready for that, especially if you want to share anything even remotely personal or controversial. Consider using a pseudonym and avoid posting any kind of personally identifiable information, whether about yourself or anyone else. That seems obvious, but I've seen people post video that clearly shows a license plate or a front door with an address visible. It's easy enough for the angry weirdos of online to find out where you live without you straight up telling them. I kinda wish I had started making short films and video essays in earnest younger, because it's always such a long, difficult process to build a skill set and an audience. But I'm glad I waited until I had a lot of experience under my belt before having a go at it publicly and in earnest. It's also my personal goal to make work that is positive, anti-elitist, and inclusive. It's easy to be negative or to make nitpicky and overly critical videos, but I think it's worth it to try to do something other than that, or at least something unique.
And the advice I feel is that it's always better to answer through your work the things you don't like in a piece of media. If you dislike the movies that are being made, make your own. Show the world what you want to do, what you think this medium should be. And I find that much more creative than simply putting it down and complaining about it. It's a more active, fascinating role to take.
The first video essays I started working on and never finished or posted were more negative and critical, and I'm glad that my first real solid exposure came from this series instead of from those. Not that it's bad to criticize anything, just that approaching film criticism or cultural criticism from a standpoint of superiority and elitism is tiresome and boring. Moving on, here's my practical shooting advice. Coming from both judging multiple film festivals and watching a ton of short films online and thus seeing a lot of films produced by inexperienced and underfunded filmmakers, and from working on a ton of low-budget projects myself. You don't always have to go along with the standard rules for filmmaking, but at least familiarize yourself with them. Know what the 180-degree rule is. Know about the rule of thirds and three-point lighting. Think about different shot choices and what they mean. Don't have too much headroom in your shots and avoid jump cuts. Really think about set and wardrobe choices and how they'll translate on screen. Even with next to no money, you can still hit up Goodwill and get some clothes and some props and keep your film visually interesting. If you can't afford to feed people on your set, you can't afford to make a movie. That's the only thing I'm really strict on. It's insulting to ask people for hours out of their day without at least feeding them, and your set will be way more fun if people aren't getting faint from lack of food. If someone's gonna work for you without getting paid, then the least you can do is buy a pizza for lunch or dinner and some sodas and chips and salsa for between takes. Familiarize yourself with any dietary restrictions or preferences any cast or crew might have and plan accordingly. Even on a no-budget or student film, professionalism and accommodation go a long way. Pre-production is more important than you can possibly imagine, and I think the number one, film rookie mistake I see, apart from not feeding people, is not planning enough. Have a plan going in for organizing your audio and your footage. Make sure your actors have your script long enough to really be familiar with their lines. And always make a shot list. A shot list is, of course, a comprehensive list of the shots you plan to take with notes on what's being filmed and with what type of shot. Like if there's camera movement, and if it's wide, medium, or close-up, stuff like that. Having an organized list of exactly what shots you'll be shooting will save you so much time on set. Just in general, going in as obsessively prepared as possible will help you a lot with tense, chaotic shoots. Spend time on lighting and sound. Make sure an audience can actually see and hear what you're doing. It sucks when you're trying to watch a short film that seems funny and creative, and you keep hearing the of an air conditioner, a refrigerator clicking on and off, or a dog barking in the background. Turn off the air conditioning, wait for planes to go by before calling action.
Alright. Wait. Wait 1 second for that dog. Yeah, we're just gonna. Alright. Go. Oh god. Wait 1 second, the toilet.
Yeah, just do one more, but I think it was going well, yeah.
Let's wait for the plane, yeah.
Oh no, it's gonna crash. Oh. Okay, ready?
Yep.
And put your car keys in the fridge when you unplug it to make sure you remember to plug it back in before you leave. Get room tone so you can layer it under cuts to hide them and use it to remove background noise in post. For my first few video essays, I used an app on my phone called Smart Voice Recorder to record my voiceover. If you can't afford a microphone but you want to do video essays, you can start there. Pop filters are really cheap, and you can record in a closet or a car at night to cut out background noise. We have decent sound equipment for our short films, but we use Walmart clamp lights for lighting. We have several, and they cost around $10 each, and the bulbs are cheap and easy to replace. Just make sure the color temperatures of your lights match and try to avoid shadows or glare. Experiment with bouncing light off of walls and with having lights closer to or further from your subject. If you have the budget, look into nicer lights and diffusion materials and everything, but if you're limited, at least make sure to use something. We usually shoot on lower-end DSLRs because that's what we own or can borrow. When shooting with a camera, always white balance, always turn off autofocus and auto aperture, and manually set as much as you can manually set. Use whatever tools are available to you to have a controlled image that accurately conveys what you're trying to convey. Learn the applications of different lenses and what looks they correspond to, and think about how that applies to what you're shooting. If you're shooting on a cell phone, try to find an app that controls focus, aperture, and white balance. They make tripods for phones, but I've been fine just using a free selfie stick and attaching it to something heavy for stability. Especially if you're working on educational content like video essays, familiarize yourself with fair use and Creative Commons licenses, and learn the difference between royalty-free and public domain, and other terms you'll see pop up, along with laws about showing someone's likeness and shooting on private versus public property. Get a signed release from anyone who acts in your film or anyone you interview to use their likeness, and when you can, get permission from locations, including signed forms. It never hurts to have all that on file. Always follow proper attribution for music and other assets you use, especially if you ever want to sell your work or submit to festivals, and avoid any kind of copyright claims. Personally, I use Incompetech, the music site run by Kevin MacLeod, freesound.org, clicker.com for weird corny clip art, pexels.com, pixabay.com, and publicdomainpictures.net. You can sort freesound by Creative Commons license and find sounds that are essentially public domain, or sounds you just have to give an attribution note for. NASA's images are generally not copyrighted, though they do have some usage guidelines. I use Wikimedia Commons a lot to find public domain images as well. Just generally, there are a ton of resources out there for images and sound that you can incorporate free of charge. I use videoblocks.com as my paid stock footage service, though they're more quantity over quality. And if you sign up there, make sure you look for a sale before buying. I also use the Envato Market for music and After Effects templates, and Motion Array for more After Effects templates. Please note, I'm not responsible for anything you find or purchase on these sites, and I've received no payment or anything like that to endorse any of them. Consider any props or locations that you have on hand that might stand out or be useful in a way you hadn't previously thought of. We got the idea for Manicurse because someone I knew came into possession of like 20 mannequin heads, and she suggested that I make a short film with them. I got to know a lot of really talented local comics, and I've started collaborating with some of them, either having them act in our shorts or shooting stuff they've written. Though, obviously, don't be friends with someone just because they'll be useful for your movie. That's gross, and you'll be stuck with people you don't really like having around, taking up room that could go to people you actually enjoy being around and can collaborate with. Go to local film clubs and events, and keep an open mind about who you would like to include in your projects. If you're shy and inexperienced, it can be difficult and even overwhelming, but forcibly putting yourself out there and meeting and working with people is invaluable. When you're starting out, if you have the time and the resources, try to help other people with their projects. It's valuable not only for the hands-on experience, but also for meeting people who you might want to work with in the future. And try to at least sometimes work with people who have had life experiences different from your own. It pays to get a variety of perspectives. Keep your set positive. Be open to criticism, and foster an environment where people respect you as head of the project, but still feel comfortable offering advice and critique. There's this concept called psychological safety that suggests that if you foster an environment of mutual respect and openness, where people can express their opinion without fear of reprisal, there'll be a much more cohesive and innovative team that learns better from mistakes.
It's always, if you do not understand how to collaborate, you will never get the real sense of movie making. But of course, cinematographers, editors, musicians, they always have their word in it, and I'm never surrounded by yes men.
A long day of shooting can be really fun if everyone feels like they're working together to help make something great. The last thing you need on top of the work and hours is someone being moody or demanding or hurling abuse at people. Don't feel obligated to work with anyone just because they're convenient or talented if they're disrespectful towards you or your cast or your crew. If someone is flaky or consistently late or unreliable or brings down everyone else, stop working with them. Your time is valuable, and there will always be someone else. Just generally, be friendly and accommodating in life and on set, and never look down on or mistreat someone just because you're above them in an arbitrary hierarchy. Werner Herzog is one of my favorite directors.
I've always been after what I call an ecstatic truth, an ecstasy of truth.
And he has a lot of interesting advice for filmmakers. Some of it is a little extreme for me personally.
For example, I do not use a storyboard. I think it's an instrument of the cowards.
Steal film and cameras, pick locks and forge papers.
Technical things I do not really teach, with two exceptions: lockpicking and forging documents. Because in a way you have to, sometimes you have to develop a certain amount of criminal energy to do what you do.
But I've always loved his core ideas about filmmaking. That you have to find some method of self-expression regardless of barriers.
You can direct good or bad, but you can direct from your iPhone, from your cell phone, with your sister's cousin video camera, with a webcam, with right now, except in the most abject circumstances, most people can get a hold of an image, audiovisual generating machine.
I had to throw half the film away. You cannot erase an actor. Today you could do it with digital effects, but at that time you couldn't do it. So I had to start all over again. And they said to me, do you have the strength? Do you have the perseverance, the stamina? Do you have the guts to go into it all over again? And I said very simply, yes, because I would be a man without dreams. And I do not want to live without dreams. So no matter what's going to happen, I'm going to go back.
And that taking in unique and challenging life experiences is essential to being a good artist. Keep an open mind and, when you can, seek out new art and interactions and experiences that will inform you both as a person and as a filmmaker. Books I'd recommend are Film Art by Thompson and Bordwell, Voice and Vision, and In the Blink of an Eye by Walter Murch. Film Art is about film as an art form, Voice and Vision has direct, practical, technical advice, and In the Blink of an Eye is a short book on editing theory that heavily influenced how I think about editing and filmmaking. I also really enjoyed If Chins Could Kill, Bruce Campbell's autobiography, and I drew some inspiration from it. If you have any additional book recommendations or advice in general, please feel free to leave them in the comments. If you have any questions for me specifically, feel free to comment with them here or on my Curious Cat or email them to me. You can see all my short films that are worth seeing here on my YouTube channel, including some that will hopefully be finished and out there in the next couple of months. If you enjoyed this video, please check out my other video essays, including the Film Nerd series episodes proper, and please consider donating to my Patreon so I can continue making video essays like this one. And as always, thanks for watching.
Alright, I think we're good, man. Okay. Everybody ready?
Yep.
And action.